he did talk about being at Conor McGregor's pub and getting the fucking meat sweats. Now, I don't know how many of you have gotten the fucking meat sweats, but I've eaten a lot of meat in my life, and not once have I gotten the meat sweats. But Paddy Pimblett takes that to another level. It's unbelievable how crazy this guy is in all aspects. When it comes to shit talking, when it comes to his actual fighting, when it comes to his eating outside of the UFC. What the fuck is going on, YouTube? Welcome to the Kevin Hoop Show, and I just want to say this. Do not forget about Paddy Pimblett, ladies and gentlemen. Do not forget about him. He is a Conor McGregor type of fighter. I'm telling you, this guy is going to be the next UFC superstar. Now, I said he gave off McGregor type of vibes, and I definitely think he does in the way he shit talks people, but I honestly think he's a genuinely nice guy at the end of the day. He talks about helping people out. He talks about mental illness and how it's a problem in this whole entire world right now. And just he talks about making a difference and trying to help people out in a genuine type of way, which I don't think you get from a lot of fighters nowadays. So, gotta tip that to Paddy Pimblett just starting off right away. Another thing that I want to talk about, which you just gotta see for yourself when you see the little minute or 2 minute clip. Only a nice, genuine guy does this, because I've had it on my fucking own lawn happen before, where some neighbors walking around, they don't have a freaking shit bag for their dog because they didn't think their dog was going to take a shit. When you take it on a freaking walk, he's not going to just go on a walk and not take a shit. That is literally a dog's purpose. They freaking wake up, they eat, and they sleep, and they shit. That's basically the three main tasks a dog has. But anyways, Paddy Pimblett is out walking his dog at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning because he's a crackhead. Went up to his neighbor's door, knocked on it. Now, it might have been more like 10 or 11, so it might not have been 1 or 2. And Paddy Pimblett's like, yo, my dog took a shit on your lawn, and I don't have a poop bag. Do you want me to pick it up still? If you do, can you give me a black bag and I'll pick it up for you? He just felt really bad. And honestly, that really showed me he's a genuine type of guy who honestly just wants to do good in the world. When you really hear him about what he wants to do for mental health in general, in his past fight, he talks about his one buddy who passed away and ended up taking his own life. I think when a fighter talks about those sort of things, it really can show what a fighter is thinking on the inside. Some fighters kind of just put on a persona, they put on a character, they don't really talk about their personal lives. But when I think a fighter opens up like that, after a main event fight on a pay-per-view, that shit's not easy, folks. I mean, it may look easy watching it on your TV at home, sitting with your freaking popcorn. But, in the actual moment, when this dude just knocked somebody out, is sweating his balls off, probably was, sad leading up the week or two before with his whole loss of his friend, just mentally, I can't even imagine how hard that was to deal with. And the fact that he overcame that and still is focusing on that and trying to push that as one of his main focuses, I really have to tip that. Now, for those of you that don't know, in his last fight against Jordan Levitt, he obviously got the fucking win. He hasn't lost yet in the UFC. For those of you that don't know about Paddy Pimblett after his fights in general, he is 1 to 10 to gain a lot of weight. He's not the best with maintaining his weight that he fights at, which you see a lot in the UFC, but not really to the extent of Paddy Pimblett's. So after his last fight against Jordan Levitt, he actually ended up going up to 209 pounds. And this isn't some rumor from someone that I watched on YouTube. Paddy Pimblett said that weeks after the fight, saying that he went up to all the way up to 209 pounds, which is around 50 plus pounds of weight that he's gaining, going from 155 fighting at that, and then a couple weeks after, it might have been a week after, it could have been days after, of gaining 50 plus pounds. Unheard of weight gains really in the UFC. You usually hear 20 or 30 pound weight gains. It's crazy to think that he's doing these weight cuts as well as fighting super well. You usually see an adrenaline dump or just a loss of a gas tank, and they won't look as well, or they look a lot more dead at that lower weight. And that also has to do with a little bit of dehydration when you're really doing a weight cut leading up to the fight. But Paddy Pimblett's really taking it to the next level, I think, with the eating disorder. And I don't know how bad he really is when it is every fight, but I know the last fight he did go up to 209 pounds. But the fact that he himself actually said he gained 50 fucking pounds is absolutely unbelievable. Speaking of his last fight, I do want to mention that he did win that by rear naked choke. It's been looking like he's been focusing on his grappling. I know that he's really been a stand-up type of fighter. He fought in Strikeforce, got the belt in Strikeforce, and we've seen him a lot in the UFC kind of be a lot more of a striking heavy type of fighter. And I think now he's really starting to branch out as a fighter. He's starting to evolve as a fighter. Maybe he's already had that in his arsenal and he hasn't just shown it because he hasn't needed to at all. And as he progresses in the UFC and starts facing more and more high-level guys, he's going to notice he has to start breaking out of his comfort zones. He got his win in his last fight with a rear naked choke, and I think that that's definitely tippable. You don't see a rear naked choke all the time. And I really think last fight, he knew exactly kind of what he was doing, how he wanted to finish it, and had a lot of control on the ground when it came to actually controlling your opponent and not letting them stand up. He wanted the fight to be on the ground, and he kept it on the ground, which I think is where he wanted to keep the fight. With that, as he's definitely progressing as a fighter, I do think Jared Gordon is definitely a mix of a challenge for him and the UFC kind of just throwing Paddy Pimblett a bone. Jared Gordon isn't the biggest killer in the UFC. He doesn't have the most astonishing record in the UFC. But, you know, he has fought guys like Charles Oliveira. He's definitely not the biggest pushover. I do think it's going to be a challenge for Paddy. But I do think that this is going to be a little step in the right direction for him to fight a ranked guy. Not saying this fight isn't serious and he can't take this fight lightly. But I do think he has to know that if he wins this fight, the next fight is going to be a lot more serious, kind of like Sean O'Malley when he got ranked after that one kind of tune-up fight. And now he's getting talked about fighting for the belt after beating Peter Yan. So with that in Paddy's head, you have to think about how serious is he taking this. I think he's probably going to be taking it more calm, cool, collective like he usually is. Maybe shit-talking a little, maybe not shit-talking as much because he knows that his next fight's going to be serious and he just wants to get over this hump and get to that part. Sometimes you don't want to jump the gun too fast. Sometimes people do that in the UFC and they end up losing to a guy that they completely were the favorite in. If Paddy Pimblett were to lose to Jared Gordon, it would possibly be one of the biggest upsets we've seen, and it would really be kind of heartbreaking to me because I really do think Paddy Pimblett has a future in the UFC of possibly being that Conor McGregor level fighter. And speaking of Conor McGregor and all of his weight gain, he did talk about being at Conor McGregor's pub and getting the fucking meat sweats. Now, I don't know how many of you have gotten the fucking meat sweats, but I've eaten a lot of meat in my life, and not once have I gotten the meat sweats. But Paddy Pimblett takes that to another level. It's unbelievable how crazy this guy is in all aspects. When it comes to shit talking, when it comes to his actual fighting, when it comes to his eating outside of the UFC. So I think that is another reason why Paddy Pimblett is this Conor McGregor style fighter. They definitely want to see him outside of the UFC, talking on interviews, talking about his tough upbringing. I know that in his past interview on his pub talk he did in the UK, I believe, he talked about, you know, he was one of those guys in one of those places that was born on the other side of the tracks. There's not lots of people in this world that can say that they were born into a good family or a good situation. A lot of people were dealt a shitty hand, and Paddy Pimblett, I think, is making the best out of the hand he was dealt. And now that motherfucker's got a royal flush in his hand and is about to just fucking put that shit down and take the whole entire pot. I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, in a year or two, Paddy Pimblett is going to be the lightweight champ. No ifs, ands, or buts. He's definitely going to be at least fighting for the belt. I know freaking Islam Makhachev is the champ right now. How long he's going to have the belt, who knows? But I definitely think Paddy Pimblett versus Islam Makhachev could be in the future. But that's definitely talking a year or two, maybe even 3 down the road. That's going to be it for this video, though, folks. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe down below. And do not forget, we are going to be having a full fight analysis on basically a lot of these fights happening for UFC 282 later this week. They're going to be posted. Stay tuned for those drops, as well as we are going to be doing a UFC 282 live watch party on Saturday night, probably going live around 9 o'clock, 9:30. We've been doing them before. We just did them for the Kevin Holland and Stephen Wonderboy Thompson fight when Wonderboy got the freaking knockout. It was a TKO more or less, but it was a great watch party. It was a lot of knockouts. I don't think one fight went to a decision. I think all of them were knockouts, and those are the best types of watch parties to have. So definitely tune in, 9 o'clock, 9:30, Saturday, Eastern Standard Time. Have a great motherfucking day.